Hello and welcome to Paper Plays Julie K.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today we are here to create a really cute Shabby Chic Gnome ornament, and this is my prototype that I have to share with you guys. I haven't finished decorating it, but I did want to put a couple of them together before I went ahead and recorded, just to make sure I had my pattern and everything down. And I did draw inspiration from a gentleman here on YouTube, and I will link his channel below. And this is very similar to his, except I altered his pattern, which I will show you the pattern that I used to create it. And of course I wanted to create mine in a shabby chic style, so I will be using a few different supplies than what he uses. But I did want to give him full credit, and again, you can check his video out below in the description box. And then one last peek at my little prototype that I put together, and I'm going to go through the supply list just so you can make sure you have all supplies on hand before you create one of these. So the first thing that you're going to need is an ornament ball, and depending upon how many you make, that's how many you need. And these are 2" in size. You can of course alter the patterns to make larger ones or smaller ones, but I am using the 2" size one today, and the color doesn't really matter, just whatever color you want. The next item that you need is some sort of scrap material or whatever you want to use to make your hat out of. And so I'm actually using part of a bed sheet. The next item that you need is some sort of fur material to use to make the fur or the beard on the ornament. And so I did pick this up at Hobby Lobby, but I know I've seen it too at craft stores where you can buy it in just smaller little sheets. I picked it up in a whole yard, but you can pick it up in smaller little sizes. I've seen those before at some of the craft stores. The next item that I am using in my ornament is I am also using some yarn, and the type of yarn that I'm using is the Yarn Bee brand, which is from Hobby Lobby. And I'm using the Eternal Bliss white style. You also need fiber fill to fill the hat of the gnome. You also need some sort of nose, and I am choosing to use these round balls. They're like little beads. You can also use beads, but I do like these because they don't have the holes in them. And these ones are the 3/4 inch in size. You can buy them bigger or smaller, and I do find these at Hobby Lobby in the wood section. You also need some sort of ribbon or seam binding to use for your hanging system. And on some of mine I did use the seam binding, but I actually prefer to use ribbon like this. And you can use the 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch would be my recommendation. I like it a little bit thinner in size than the seam binding. You could also use lace if you wanted to instead of the ribbon. The next items that you will need are some sort of embellishments if you choose to embellish your hat. And I have a couple different options here for you. I do have some bells, some little Christmas bells. Again, you can find these at Hobby Lobby. If you want some sort of ribbon roses or some other type of fabric roses, you could definitely do that. I'm also going to use a little bit of this flower trim. So I did pick this out to use today. And here's another option of some little flowers that you could put on top of your hat. You can also choose to add some sort of snowflake or poinsettia. I know there's lots of different embellishments out there. Here's like a flat back button that looks like a snowflake, and I found these in the button section at Walmart. You also can use these types of snowflakes, and these are the little mini ornaments that you can find at Hobby Lobby. I use these a lot on embellishments, so you can choose something like that. And then I think this is the item that I'm going to go with for embellishing. I do want a snowflake on mine, but I really love these bling type snowflakes, and these I purchased from Angel Dreams Crafts Kim on Etsy. So this is what I'm going to be using today, but I did want to show you a wide variety of different items that you can use that you might most likely have in your stash to use to embellish the gnome hat. The next few items are kind of your basic craft supply items that most of us have in our stash. I will be using a hot glue gun or whatever type of adhesive you like. You could also use a fabric glue. You will also need an X-Acto knife and a scissors. You will need some sort of writing instrument. I'm going to be using a pencil. You will also need either a needle and thread or a sewing machine, but you could also get by with just using your hot glue if you choose to do that. If you don't want to sew, you could also use your hot glue gun. And the last item that you need is your pattern. And so here is my pattern, and I chose, because I'm going to mass produce these, so I did choose to trace my pattern onto a piece of chipboard. And so I'm going to show you guys how to go ahead and create your own pattern. And so this is my hat pattern, and then this is my pattern for the beard on the gnome. And so what I started off doing is I actually started off with graph paper, and I drew out my little pattern on graph paper. And so this triangle pattern is 4 inches across, and then I measured up in the middle of it. You know, I folded it up in half and drew a line, but that is 4.5 inches from here to the point. And then on each side, then once I created a point up here, I went ahead and I drew another line, and from here to up here it's 5 inches on both sides of this triangle. So that's how I started off with my pattern. And then from there, what I ended up doing then is, if you take this triangle and you were to draw it out, like here's a piece of paper towel that I drew it on. So if you were to start off like right here, and then I folded this pattern in half, and then I drew that line right there, and then I turned it around and I drew this line right here just to get this shape. And then also what I did is I rounded it then from the 2 points. And that's just the pattern that worked out well for me. If you guys watched the video that I linked below, he had more of a triangle shaped pattern, and that pattern just didn't work out for me. But this one worked out for me. So this is, again, how I created it. And then one of the other things that I did is, after I kind of drew it out, I actually used the paper towel, and because you want to make sure that your hat's going to go all the way around your ornament after you sew it. So that's why I found doing it on the paper towel helped, just because I wanted to make sure I could get it around the ornament ball all the way. Then the last part of the pattern that you need to create is the beard. And I just freehand drew this again on graph paper, and then I transferred it over to a piece of chipboard. But roughly it's 3.5 inches across. And then I went down about 2 3/4 inch. But you can vary this depending upon how long or short you want your beard on your ornament. But this was the one that I found that worked well for me. So those were my measurements. Again, that's 3.5 inches across and 2 3/4 inches down. And then I just kind of drew like a little semicircle to create it. So the first step, of course, is to start tracing out your patterns. So your hat pattern, you are going to want to trace onto your material. And of course, I've already gone ahead and did that and then cut it out. The next step is to go ahead and we're going to cut out our beard. And I wanted to show you guys that one. And so you do take your beard material, and there is kind of a right way and a wrong way to cut this out. If you look at your material, like you can see the hair on the beard is going down this way. So that would be the way you'd want to make sure you cut it out. The first one I cut out backwards, and so the hair went the wrong way and it wouldn't look right on my ornament. So, I'm going to turn this around to the back side, and you can see I have it going the right way right here, that the hair is going down. So this is going to be the top of my beard, which the top part is the 3.5 inches. So I'm going to turn this upside down, because I'm going to draw on the back side. So I flip my material around, and you guys can see this is the one where I cut it out wrong. I did it wrong because I didn't have the hair of the beard going down like it was supposed to. So again, this is the top and this is the bottom. And so I'm just going to trace my pattern. And you can just lightly trace it. If you have one of those like invisible marking pens for quilting, that would be a good choice to use to trace your pattern out. And if you're really good, you can just freehand it too when you cut it out, but I find it easier to use a pattern. And so I did try and mark it a little bit darker so that you guys could see it. And the next step is, as you can see, there's a couple layers to the material. There's the hair layer, and then there's just this backing piece. And so you just want to lightly go around with your X-Acto knife, and we're just going to cut this back part because we don't want to cut. We want to make sure that the hair of the beard is going to look like a beard when we're done. And so we're just going to lightly cut through this top layer. And I'll also be using a scissors to do part of it, but again, for this first part, just lightly cut through this top layer of the material. And this isn't going to be perfect. I'm just trying to get a little bit of it cut up, and then I'll finish it with the scissors. So I just wanted to try and show you up close. You can see I just barely nicked that top part, and that's what you want, is just to barely cut this top layer of the material without cutting the hair underneath it for the beard. So when I feel like I got enough that I kind of cut right like that, I'm just going to go through and gently cut with my scissors. And again, I'm just trying to cut with my scissors. I'm just trying to cut this backing part of the material. I'm not wanting to cut the beard part, because what'll happen is, like, here's one that I've already cut out right. If you cut too straight, like down here, you'll end up giving the beard kind of a funny look to it, and you want the hair to be as natural as you can to make it look like a beard. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just very carefully cutting just the back part of the material. So I know this isn't going to show up very well on the camera, but I'm just very gently sliding my scissors underneath just the top layer. And I'm just taking my time. So now I'm just going to show you here, because if I would have been cutting all the way through the layers, I would have been cutting this hair also. And as you can see, just because I was cutting just that top layer, I still have some nice hair sticking out of the bottom for the beard. And so that's why we're just being slow and methodical about just cutting through the very top layer of this material. And so that's what we end up with. And then what I like to do is I just like to kind of pull my hands through it, because sometimes a little bit of it sheds, and so I like to take that off. And my other recommendation is when you're making these, is you want to make sure that whatever you're wearing doesn't attract hair. Like the other day when I tried to make this, I had a sweater on and it was just full of white after I was done making a couple of these. So today I put on a sweatshirt that won't adhere the extra hair quite as much. And so again, we just cut out this little beard. And so now there's an option, if you guys like to have the back side of your ornaments look, you know, the same, is you could cut out two of these, so then you would glue them back to back, so then it would be hair on both sides. But I chose not to do that, but I did want to give you guys that option. If you wanted to cut out two of these, you could. So the next step is to go ahead and we're going to finish our hat. And so you want to make sure you have, you know, which side's the front and the back side of your material, because you want to sew it with the wrong side out. So this one, I know it's going to be tough to see, but this is the front side of the material and this is the back side. And so you're going to just fold it this way to create your point up at the top, and then you're going to put these two together. And we are going to sew this, but before we do that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to find a ribbon or a hanging system for this one. And so I already have a piece of ribbon, and how I decided is I folded it in half and I want it slightly longer than the size of my hat. And then I'm just going to lay that in here. Here's the fold, and then here's the point of the hat. I'm just going to lay it up here close to where I'm going to fold it shut here. Now, if you were going to not sew this, what you'd want to do is you'd probably want to tie a knot up here and then hot glue it to the hat. But since I'm going to sew mine shut, I don't need to worry about that. But again, if you were to be just gluing it down the side, I would really recommend knotting this up here. And then once you turn the hat inside out, the knot will be on the inside of the hat. So if you are, again, going to be just hot gluing this all together, tie a knot up here. And then also you will want to hot glue up here at the top. But again, since I'm going to sew mine on the sewing machine, I'm not going to do that. So then I'm going to go ahead and fold this over. And so that's kind of what it looks like. And so now I'm going to take it to my sewing machine and I am going to sew it from the point of the hat down to the base of the hat right here. This is going to stay open. So I'm going to sew right along here. And then again, if you were to hot glue it, you could just open it up and then hot glue it right along there. And of course, I already have one completed, so I have that one to show you guys up close so you can see what it looks like after I've already taken it through the sewing machine. So you can see my hanging mechanism, my ribbons already sewed in, and I sewed along the edge right there. Just kind of a 1/4 of an inch or so is all you need. So now the next step is, once you have done that, is we're going to go ahead and turn the hat right side out. And since I have a little extra tail hanging up here, I'm just going to cut that off a little bit because I don't need that. But I'm going to turn it the right way. And sometimes I find it helpful to use a tweezers, but you don't have to. And I just hook my tweezers up at the point up here, and I just pull it and turn it the right way. And so that's what our hat looks like. So if it bugs you, you can kind of even this out. But again, I'm going to be putting some trim around the bottom, so this won't matter. You won't see that way. But that's, again, what my hat looks like. This is going to be the front of my hat, and this is going to, where the seam is, that's going to be the back of my hat. So the next step is to stuff your hat with a fiberfill. And you can stuff this as full as you want, or just normal, just it's your own preference. And I'm happy with that, so it's pretty full. So I'm going to take one of these glitter balls, and I'm just going to kind of look at it and see what it's going to look like. See where the hat comes down to, and I'm just going to kind of visualize that. And I do put my hands kind of right where the hat comes down to when I push it. And I also like to then just check it out with what it would look like with my little beard on it and the hat, just to make sure everything's kind of starting to look like a gnome. So once I have the beard where I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. I actually might have a little too much stuffing in the hat there, but I think that'll work. So just pull the beard up just slightly more. And then what I like to do is I like to hold half of the beard down and just put some hot glue on this half. And I glue it down. And then I take this half. So you want to be careful and not use too much glue, because it can gather up around the hair on the beard and make it a big mess. And then the other thing just to be aware of is that these ornaments are kind of made of plastic. These are the non-breakable ball ornaments, and they do get hot once you use a little bit of hot glue on them, depending upon, like, the shinier ones get a little hotter. But because they are plastic, it is possible to have the hot glue melt it. So that's why I try not to put too much hot glue, just enough to do my project, but not too much, because I did have one that melted just a little bit. So I am going to take out just a little bit of the fiberfill in this hat, because I think I had too much in it. And then you're going to want one of your noses to be ready. If you guys want, I'm just using the natural color, but you could definitely paint this if you wanted to have like a little brown nose or a little like pink or flesh colored nose, you could do that. Or if you wanted a little red nose, like it's cold outside, you could paint it red. I'm just using the natural wood color. And at this point, I kind of like to visualize where I'm going to put my nose. And you're going to want the hat to go over the nose just slightly once you glue it. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my little nose down. And if you see, I just put it barely down on to where the top of the beard. I don't do it right above the beard, but I do it just right at the very top of the beard. And I just give that a second to dry before I glue the hat down. So now I have my hat, and that's again kind of what it looks like on the inside with all the fiberfill. And then again, this is my front, and then my back is where the seam is. And so I'm going to glue it down kind of like this, because I want it, the nose showing. And so what I like to do is just glue a little bit at a time down. So I usually start off to the right or to the left of the nose and put a little bit of hot glue down. I don't do the glue until the nose until the very end. So I'm just going maybe a half an inch to the right of the nose right now. And I'm just putting a little bit of glue down. And I'm kind of lining up where I want my nose showing and the hat. I'm just going to hold that there for a second. I do bunch up the material a little bit around the nose when I'm done. So, and then I like to kind of do the same thing on the other side. And I just give that kind of a second to dry. I'm going to go ahead and finish the back, and then I'll end at the nose. So I'm going to put glue on the rest of it underneath here and glue it down. And again, I like to do it in sections and make sure a section's dry before, or it hardened before I go ahead and add the next part of the glue. So that's kind of what the back looks like right now. I know it doesn't look pretty, but once we put the trim around it, the yarn around it, it's going to look really cute. So, but now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some glue and kind of pinch the material around the nose. So you do want a little bit of the nose showing. And so that's what it looks like right now. So the next step is to go ahead and take your yarn or whatever trim you want to use. You could buy like some pom-poms too and glue that around. If you have pom-poms, you could just glue a whole bunch of pom-poms down. You could also glue down, you could also fold over another piece of material and glue that down if you want that kind of look. I like to start my trim at the back. And so I'm going to start back here. Again, I just like to be slow and methodical about it. I like to give it a second or two to dry or to harden before I move on to the next little sector. And then while I'm doing this, I'm trying to cover up if you could see any glue or anything like that. Like here I have a little bit of dried glue right there, so I want to make sure that I'm going to kind of hide that with this trim or this yarn as I'm adding it to my gnome. And again, when I add this trim, I don't want to fully cover the nose. So I just want to make sure I'm staying right where the material is when I glue this up and over the nose. And I do have to say, I really do like this yarn for this step. Like I said, there's other options you can do, but it really hides a lot of the flaws that are down at kind of the edge of the material and the beard and the ornament. And so that's what we have so far. Like I said, if you had wanted the backside to also have the hair, you could have just glued that down back there before you glued the whole beard to the ornament. So the next step that I like to do is, while I still have this yarn out, is I like to put a little bit around the top of the ornament, just to make it look like he has a little fuzzy pom-pom on the top. And again, I usually start off towards the back of the hat and work my way around. So that's what the top looks like. And if you want, you can add a little flower up at the top. I like to add a little jingle bell. So the next step is to glue a little jingle bell up at the top if you want, or any other decoration, or you can leave it as is. And so what I like to do is just put a little bit of glue at the very top of the jingle bell. And then I take my gnome and I'm going to actually hold him upside down and glue it, because I'm trying to keep the glue from adhering the inside jingle bell maker, the little ball that's on the inside. I'm trying to keep that from reaching the jingle bell. So I do hold it upside down. I know it's kind of awkward here on the camera, but this is the best way I found to do that. And I just give it a few seconds to dry before I flip it back up. So you can hear that it's still jingling. So then the next step is to decide if you want to add any more embellishments or decorations, and I want to add just a couple quick ones. Again, I want one of the little snowflakes, and I don't know yet. When I ordered these, there's 2 different sizes from Angel Dreams Crafts, and I will link Kim's store also in the description box in case you're interested in purchasing any of these. I do want to put one on the corner right here on the hat. But before I do that, I do want to go around it with this little trim. I just think that would look really cute. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And again, I'm just going to start from the back and then work my way around to the front and to the back again. But again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I just wanted to add this. I love this trim, and I just had I've had a couple scraps left of this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and add it. So there's what it looks like with that cute little trim. And I think I still have some scraps left of this one, so I'm going to go ahead and I think I want to add it. No, I don't like it at the top, so I'm not going to put it around the top. But if you like it around the top, you could add it on the top. And now my last step is to decide which size snowflake I want to add. Again, if you don't have the bling, you could use some of these flat back snowflake buttons. And again, these I did find at Walmart. I also have these little mini ornaments that come from Hobby Lobby that also would work. If you like little flowers like this, you could add a few of those. You know, I have these little white carnation looking ones that I could add that there too. But I kind of have my mindset on the snowflake bling, so I just have to decide which snowflake I like. I think I like the littler one, but both would work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to carefully glue that right here off to the side of the nose. You could also glue it up at the top if you prefer to decorate up at the top. And there is our completed ornament. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this tutorial today. And until next time, I hope you guys all have a wonderful day and happy crafting.